And welcome. Welcome to Festival Bloomsday Montreal 2021, our 10th anniversary edition. Bonjour et bienvenue. It's our second virtual edition too. Next year, I'm sure, we'll all be together physically. But you know, I have this feeling that streaming may always be with us, no matter how physically together we are. We'll see. Anyway, I'm Dennis Trudeau, and I'm very happy to host this first event of our 2021 celebration of James Joyce, of Ulysses, of literature, song, poetry, and dance, and good talk. We have it all and more this year, you know, leading up to Bloomsday, the 16th of June. First of all, Festival Bloomsday Montreal acknowledges that we are on the indigenous territory of the Ojiega and that the Ganyongeaga Mohawk Nation is the custodian of these lands and waters. Now, Bloomsday, June 16th. Since you're here with us, you more than likely know the significance of the day, but for the record, for the neophytes among us, and for the pleasure of telling the story again, here's a quick rundown. June 16th, 1904, a struggling young writer in Dublin, Ireland, had a first date with a beautiful young woman, Nora Barnacle. That date was so momentous that the writer chose the date as the setting for his epic novel, Ulysses, a novel that follows an advertising salesman, Leopold Bloom, on his odyssey around Dublin. Now, like Homer's hero, who took 10 years to get home from the Trojan War, Bloom encounters obstacles and temptations aplenty before getting back to number 7 Eccles Street and his exasperated, unfaithful, but ever-loving wife, Molly Bloom. Now, for us, 2021 marks the 10th anniversary of Festival Bloomsday Montreal, and we're pleased as punch to be here with you in cyberspace using a technology that, didn't really exist when David and Judith Sherman first hatched the idea of a festival celebrating James Joyce's monumental work and Irish arts, history, culture right here in Montreal. Now, Judith Mosechuk Sherman died suddenly this year. So this year's festival we have dedicated to her memory. Our theme this year, which she worked to choose, is Origins, and which she approved. Now, Judith was an originator of this and many other social, cultural, and educational enterprises. And she was an original with her bright smile, her hearty laugh, her clear thinking, foresight, kindness, and the Cape Breton lilt she never lost. She brought Bloomsday Montreal from the germ of an idea to a fully functioning organization with a past to be proud of, a promising future, virtual and real, and a present to enjoy right here and now. Thank you, Judith. Thank you. Now, about 40% of Quebecers have some Irish origins or ancestors or, forebears, and that includes me. Irish and French Canadians, Quebecois, shared a Catholic upbringing, a history of resistance to the same oppressor and the same imperial language, and a love of fiddle music. So settlers from France and Ireland found much in common. The shamrock, is on one of the 5 symbols on the City of Montreal's official flag and coat of arms. The Irish-born writer, lawyer, and politician Darcy McGee, who was sickened by all the sectarianism and bigotry he experienced in Ireland and in the US, introduced the resolution which called for guarantees for educational rights of religious minorities in Upper and Lower Canada, as they were called at the time. So, there's really no discussion to be had about the influence and the contributions the Irish brought to Montreal and the flavor all things Irish have added to our lives. Now, as for his origin in this, David Sherman, the other co-founder, he discovered the book in 1964 and, like so many of us, was baffled on first reading, but stuck to it and became one of the millions who find Ulysses endlessly fascinating. And that's one of the reasons, the prime reason, that Bloomsday is celebrated, one way or another, off and on, in over 60 cities around the world. Bloomsday was published in 1922. And it was met with delight and derision, not even in equal measure. It was anti-clerical, and it had frank descriptions of bodily functions, urine and orgasm and all that kind of thing. That upset the authorities and the churches, and people didn't like it. It also frustrated many a reader because it was written in such a complex literary way. The book itself, because of the unhappiness of the authorities and the churches, was confiscated, burned, banned, smuggled, and read in secret, under the sheets with a flashlight. Joyce could write clear prose, of course. He was a great writer. But, writing clear prose for him was been there, done that. And then there was the time. The time. The First World War had shattered the old order. Empires had fallen. Much of Europe lay in ruins. Populations had revolted, not only in Europe. Leaders redrew the map, the imperial leaders, the winners, redrew the map of the Middle East and Africa, with a ruler and a compass and a geometry set, splitting kin from kin and setting up rivalries, which we are still dealing with more than 100 years later. And William Butler Yeats said about one of those events, the 1916 Easter Uprising in Dublin, quote, all changed utterly. A terrible beauty is born. And Joyce took part in this birth of everything that had changed. Like his contemporaries in painting and music, Picasso, Stravinsky, and so many others, Joyce pushed the boundaries of the medium, using words, sentences, paragraphs in a new way, twisting and distorting them, changing them utterly to see what would happen. It was not haphazard. He was meticulous in editing and correcting proofs. He was weak of eye, though. He underwent 20 eye surgeries over the course of his life. And that meant he had to rely on transcribers. So some of his spelling and word choices are still being debated to this day, 99 years after the publication. It occurs to me, you could probably also draw a line from Ulysses to the Refus Global in Montreal of 1948 and the Révolution Tranquille of the 1960s here, which changed so much, so utterly too. And we're still living with those changes and what they wrought. 10 years ago, Bloomsday in Montreal had its official launch. And we are honored to open this milestone festival with a legend in contemporary dance. This first event of this Bloomsday Festival this year in Montreal, we welcome the internationally acclaimed Margie Gillis. Now, throughout her career, she has pushed the boundaries of the medium, twisting and challenging the world of movement as a dancer, choreographer, creator, and interpreter, and in inspiration. And every change and challenge leads to the birth of a terrible beauty on stage or on film in Margie Gillis's work. Over the years, Margie has created a rich repertory of more than 150 creations, solos, duets, group works performed around the globe. The new form of movement she developed in her unique artistic voice has since influenced generations of choreographers and dancers, physical movers. Her repertoire covers topics from feminine conscience, the natural world, transformative process, and it all merges in a profound and powerful expression of humanism and emotion. And there's a parallel with Joyce, because like Joyce, when Margie and her work, and I remember this, burst onto the scene, it was greeted with delight by some and with derision by many because it was so revolutionary. It's said that Margie Gillis heard the word no so often, no to her work, that it was a delight for her to discover Molly's yes. I said, yes, I will, yes. Yes, a word Margie Gillis was craving to hear. And so years ago, she was inspired by the masterful reading of Molly Bloom's soliloquy by Siobhan McKenna. And that inspired her to create a solo dance, Bloom. She took it around the world to great acclaim. And now Margie Gillis is building an ensemble piece, incorporating the journeys of the two other main characters in Ulysses, Stephen Dedalus and Leopold Bloom. We're going to watch a video of the work in progress called The Whole Bloomin' Thing. And then we have the rare privilege of talking to Margie Gillis. If you're with us live on Zoom, you can ask questions by clicking the Q&A icon on the bottom of your Zoom and Zoom screen and typing your questions in. And then thanks to the backstage efforts of our artistic director, Kathleen Fee, and our technical director, Edmund Nash, we'll be able to transfer those questions to Margie. After the conversation, we'll show the video again. You may then see it differently once you've heard what the great Margie Gillis has to say about it in our conversation. Okay, that's enough talking. Edmund, let's have the video.
Wait. There's George's church bells. Wait. 3/4 the hour. Wait. 2 o'clock. Well, that's a nice hour of the night for him to be coming home at to anybody. Climbing down into the area. If anybody saw him, I'll knock him off that little habit tomorrow. First, I'll look at his shirt to see, or I'll see if he has that French letter still in his pocketbook. I suppose he thinks I don't know deceitful men. All their 20 pockets aren't enough for their lies. Then why should we tell them? Even if it's the truth, they don't believe you. Then tucked up in bed like those babies in the aristocrat's masterpiece he brought me another time, as if we hadn't enough of that in real life without some old aristocrat or whatever his name is disgusting him more with those rotten pictures. Children with 2 heads and no legs. That's the kind of villainy they're always dreaming about, with not another thing in their empty heads. They ought to get slow poison, the half of them. Then tea and toast for him, buttered on both sides, and new-laid eggs. I suppose I'm nothing anymore when I wouldn't let him lick me in Hollis Street one night. Man, tyrant as ever.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Margie Gillis.
Okay, so I need to unmute, start my video. There we go. Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
Margie Gillis.
Hi, Yippee.
I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy you can join us.
Me too. I'm delighted. I'm really, really delighted. I love Bloom and I love James Joyce and this is great.
I must say, listen, I was taken aback. I thought we were going to have a longer video than that. But
Okay.
it's okay. It's okay. We're going to have a longer conversation.
We just did the excerpts and we just sent out the excerpts. This was actually filmed right before lockdown. So the piece did not get to continue further, and we had taken the footage in order to get clippings to share with people to excite them about the idea of our multiple Molly.
Okay. So you brought up the pandemic. You brought up before we get into Molly and the answer yes, I wonder for you as an artist, because I think a lot of people that have gone through this in their own lives, whatever they do, what has the pandemic done for you, to you, with you as a creator?
I think at first I just wanted to listen. I did not want to create action that was not right action or not a valuable action. So just to feel and wait until I heard the voice inside of me say, this you do, and I did it. And that was to start teaching class, a meditation movement class for dance professionals. I work with dancers from around the world. And so many of the dancers in our community were not as lucky as the Canadian dancers who were able to get some subsidy, which I'm so outrageously grateful for. That and social medicine really makes the life of an artist a lot easier here in Canada. I have a dual citizen, but I am a Canadian and a Quebec dancer, so and choreographer. So I began teaching for free because the dancers didn't have any money. Meditation movements, in other words, movements that come from a a range of metaphors that dealt with taking care of the heart, taking care of the fire in the belly, and taking care of the mind. So trying to find a way to also deal with people's fears, people's panic, dancers' panic, and get them sort of what I would call firmly planted in midair, comfortable with the mystery. And then to start, once the comfort comes, it's kind of like noticing yourself as a little prince suspended on a small blue planet, suspended in a galaxy, suspended in a. So it's how to feel this mystery and this unease, but become curious about it instead of frightened, and how to shift perspectives. So I took the Buddhist blue sky mind, the Sufi heart with wings, and of course the pelvic floor, the belly, the fire in the belly, and that's where all movement comes from. Stephen Hawkins did tests that show that we make our decisions from the gut as opposed from the intellect. So the intellect is our lovely little hunter-gatherer, but our immediate movement or our immediate reaction to things happen in the biodome, in the biosphere, in our stomach.
Bio, yes.
In your belly, it's your guts.
And if you're making the wrong decision, your gut will tell you too.
Yes, exactly. And then the brain organizes the thoughts around that. So it runs up and down. Everything's going up and down the spine through the vagus nerve, et cetera, et cetera. But dancers will tell you, so you can think of it as if you're a dancer and somebody's got you in a lift and they drop you. You don't have time to think, okay, how will I fall and what will I do and what splat. Your gut tells you where to go, how to best arrange yourself to mitigate the problems. So yeah,
can you take the pandemic image and the pandemic situation and turned it into something that you could work, and also that's something that would be good for others who needed help?
Well, the first concern that I have is the sharing. What am I communicating with the audience? What is this that I want to talk about? So that I use my experiences to become transpersonal, to use a Jungian word, so that I can get into that transpersonal space and really feel the spirit move me, or the thing, the inspiration come towards me, and then manifest that and make that practical. But yes, so the dancers and the dancers from my legacy project, I was able to work with dancers one-on-one for certain periods during the pandemic. And I have been insanely prolific. It's just been stuff coming out of me right, left, and center. And because I couldn't continue with Bloom, I've kind of created, the latest is a solo for a woman named Ruth Levin, who is the personification of spring 2021, with its just, oh, I gotta be out. Oh, come on. Oh, let me go. Oh, I gotta grow. So she's just running all over the place as the personification of spring, just screaming at everybody and screaming at everything. It's delicious and delightful. It's very wild. And it's very beautiful. And of course, nature has a way, if you listen to it, of organizing our chaos. So I find that a delicious thing. So yeah, so I've been doing a lot of teaching online, and a lot of choreographing, and a lot of reflection. But it's been a busy time. It's been a super busy time.
You mentioned Bloom, and I want to get to Bloom and the whole Bloom thing in just one moment. But I do want to underline something that you said, which is that artists in Canada have the advantage of socialized medicine. They don't, and one never thinks of that artists elsewhere, for instance, in our neighbor to the south, don't have that, and therefore face extra pressures, extra problems.
Yes, and in order to do the art that they want to do, which is where the benefit is, to our community, is the visionary work, and then getting that all on, practicalized, whether it's painting or music or whatever. It takes, you have to spend more days working to get money, and then you've got this much left for your art, as opposed to us who have, about, we can get away with this. And then, I think for me, the richness has never been in finances. The richness has been in time and in quality and and the ability to do my art and to work in that kind of way. And yes, Canada has been astonishing, and I feel quite grateful, very grateful.
The theme this year of the festival is origin. So can we go back with you to your origin with Molly Bloom, how you met Molly Bloom?
Had a couple of, actually I've been reflecting on it, and I had a couple of introductions, but one was in a little red sports car that my manager and boyfriend at the time, Jack Kadashkin, who went on to run the NAC, the dance division, performing arts division at the NAC, National Arts Center. And he and I were taking this car out west as a drop off, and we were going over the bridge and he in Regina, and clear as a bell, we had just, he made this tape for us to listen to along the way. And we had just finished listening to Rubber Ducky, which is rather mind-catching. And then all of a sudden, there was Molly, and there was Leopold. And Molly came up right in the middle of this trip across and I just fell in love with her, and didn't think I would do anything to her, but I had truly fallen in love with her. I also had the honor of working with the Theater of the Open Eye in New York, which was the theater that Joseph Campbell and his wife, Jane Erdman, who was a Martha Graham dancer, ran. And she had done the coach with the Six Insides. So based on Joyce. So I had some experience with that, and certainly knew of Joyce with my passion of reading about Gertrude Stein and all that whole group and all those writers, and Paris in that time period really held a fascination for me. And I think then I wanted to hear the word yes, as you had said, and I was going through a big no time, and I just wanted to hear that yes. And so I started running around the house saying yes in as many ways as I could. And I realized that Molly was out there. So I got some friends to help me, and some wonderful people too, including Harvey Lichtenstein from the Brooklyn Academy of Music in New York. And Harvey wanted me to do the full Bloom, which I am finally doing. He won't be here to see it, but he'll be a good angel, and we'll keep all sorts of seats in heaven for him to be able to watch it once it gets fully done. So we found the Sri Ben McKenna, and I began to choreograph. And I first of all, I love that there's no punctuation, because I'm dyslexic. So that's the way my brain works. I will write things, and I'll write them, and that's literally what my hands are doing with my pen. It all comes to me scrambled, and then my brain is fast enough to sort it into, usually fast enough to sort it into the right order, but not for punctuation. I sort of think you should have a salt and pepper shaker and just put those on after. I just loved how the phrasing and the timing was, and Sri Ben McKenna speaks it so brilliantly. You really understand. There's a clarity to it, to the imagery, or at least there was for me, for my ear.
In a way, then, listening to Siobhan McKenna's reading of it, it was a new meeting with Molly, I guess.
Yes, it was a clarity with her. It was a clarity with her, and a clarity of the timing and the phrase, and such as you would get with a Gertrude Stein, where you can have somebody reading her work in theater that people from all over the world, and they always seem to use the same phrasing. And there's no phrasing indicated but our humanness, our wonderful nature that we are, helps us organize that. And so Sri Ben McKenna was a close. I have done it with a number of actresses, including Claire Bloom in New York. And I must say, Claire's Molly was so juicy and so voluptuous. I don't think there was a dry seat in the house. I mean, seriously, she was just just she was like this peony. She was just in your face. So so I began to choreograph it, and it's as if there's a mind. And she's running around inside of her mind, and I thought, well, she's so quick with changing, even in what would maybe be a sentence structure, in changing a flight in her mind to 30 years before or later, or jumping around time-wise, which we do when we're trying to sort through our lives at night. We can't sleep, we're aroused, we don't know what's going on. We're looking for that yes, that out, that orgasm, that yes, that moving, that transformative process. And we're just sort of in that groove. And I thought, oh boy, that is so fast. Can my body move that fast in texture? In texture, can I do that in texture? Can I go from 100% energy to 10% energy to 85% energy to 62, and just quickly shift states of being, qualities of memory? Here I am with this, here I am somewhere else. And so it's a nuance, it's an art piece. It's a piece about the precision of sound, the precision of meaning, and the precision of quality of that meaning. So I just got thrilled and excited. It took me about 8 months to really choreograph it to where I felt happy with it. And that leaves us with a piece that looks totally natural, like I'm just doing it off the bat, but it is really choreographed down to the fingernail. And then I've taught it a lot, and I've done it all over the world. I mean, I have done it in places like Texas, where they would go, well, could you have given us the words, because we didn't understand it? I'd say, well, that's in English. No, ain't no English I understand. So, or you go to Nova Scotia, and everybody is like, they get it. They get all the jokes. They get, tea and toast for him, buttered on both sides, and new laid eggs. They just, no problem. They're on it. They're with it. I sadly have not done it in Ireland yet. That's kind of weird, but nonetheless. So my Molly, and her yes. And then my brother Chris, I started to choreograph for Chris, who was dancer with the Paul Taylor Company, and was a very noble, generous, and laborious kind of lovely man. In some ways, he could move very fast, but he could also slow time down. And he became my delicious Leopold, gorgeous Leopold. And I love things like where Leopold says, time. Now that's the time it takes. I mean, I just love that line. I just find that endlessly funny, that you would, it's like nature it is. It's like the obvious is the obvious. And the simplicity of that, or I don't think he does it by choice. I think he does it by necessity, but nonetheless, it was very beautiful. So I had a Leopold choreographed already, and then I put the women in so that the women would be the ocean. And those lovely seaside girls. So I've got all of them. And then everybody goes into a whirlpool, and we end up with my multiple Mollies with the main Molly. We're then going to get to the point where it will break and go into Stephen Dedalus. In the so the work, as it's going to be, as it's sort of laid out at this point, starts with Leopold at the beach. In my version, starts with Leopold doing those lovely Leopold, and it's a male doing a male role, and the women are women, and then everybody, male and female, but all wearing dresses, so it's multiple Mollies, multiple gender play, multiple things, with a lead Molly. Then we have a break, and Stephen Dedalus will come, and Stephen Dedalus will be dancing to a male voice, but is a woman. My Stephen Dedalus is a woman. Then we will go back to different characters playing Molly, and then we will go back to a segment with Stephen, and then then we go back to the all Mollies, and the group, the cast will be, they'll have sort of disintegrating into male and female, half dressed, half this way, half that way, and a lot of gender blending. And then we come to our final yes.
It's a work in progress.
It sure is, but it's clear in my head.
How progress is it?
Well, we haven't been able to
Sounds
get
quite
together.
complete.
My first Stephen is done. My first Leopold is done. But there's a lot that we need to do when we can open the doors and get people in, because the cast members are also going to be from the States and from Europe, and yeah, and we want to be able to do it in both French and English.
So there we are, back to the pandemic issues again, which pretty soon we'll be opening up, they say, and things are getting easier, I suppose. I wonder, before we go on to some of the other things you've been doing and where you are in your situation, for you, who created the solo role, created the solo Bloom, what was it, how was it to be able, or to transform it into an ensemble piece, to say goodbye to that and make it something else?
Fun. I just feel that, it's not always easy to let go of things. It's not always that when you've got something delicious, or when you can shift your sorrow to your curiosity, and then there's a place to go. I would like to just mention, though, that one of the reasons that I'm playing with gender here is because we have a man who's writing about a woman in a very intimate way. And I portrayed that woman. And yet that woman was written by a man. So that gave me, in my mind, permission to just muck with the thing and do transgender, this gender, that gender, and start with sort of certain kinds of gender normalcy, and then shift and play with them. And I think it's wonderful that we have male and female side elements inside of us. We have, and so why not play with those, and why not play with that full out? So it's really, yeah, it's really fun. So
as I said at the beginning, we have opened, people in their Zoom audience can type in questions on their Zoom, and we are going to pass those questions on to you. So just a reminder there to people in our Zoom land that you can have a question. We've already got a couple of questions from the audience that we'll be passing on to Margie Gillis one way or another. Either I'm going to see them in my chat or we'll hear them. Tell us now, though, you are established in the Eastern Townships. You have a foundation. What is the enterprise Margie Gillis now?
Well, I'm still doing solo work. I'm working on a piece about aging and the qualities that I've certainly learned from my mother and my aunt about curiosity and falling, and how to age brilliantly, in my opinion. And things that I've learned and garnered from the health activity that dancing is. So all of that. Plus, I have a legacy project, which a projet héritage, where I share my creative methods and my teaching methods and my choreographic methods with dancers, and I choreograph on them, and some of them do the older works, and some of them do new works. Some of them do the older works the way I did the older works, and some of them do the older works in ways that are relevant to them. And I now have purchased my family home, which I'm sitting in, and the church, the diocese, which my great-grandfather had this built. It's closing in on 200 years. And the church across the way, St. Mark's, is the church that my great-grandfather organized and originated and was the first minister of. And the diocese is giving the Margie Gillis Dance Foundation a lease to be able to use the space. It remains sacred. It's modeled on, for me, St. Mark's in New York, which is a sacred space Anglican church that has performances and dance and art activities during the week, and on Sundays is sacred space. So we're going ahead with that. And when I was a child, I had a brilliant minister named Reverend Church, who was just an ecstatic kind of person. He looked like a tall, skinny Einstein. All of his sermons were about love and forgiveness. He would stop sermons so we could listen to certain bird calls. He invited dogs and children and cats to dance and be running up and down the aisles and playing. And he loved the organicness of life and the spill and the play and the humor and the laughter of life. And so I've been dancing in the church since I was a little girl. And it's really lovely to come around full. I mean, the work, it is sacred space. So the work is based on that will be in there, housed in there, will have elements of serving humanity, elements of meditation, elements of spirituality, elements of looking at ways to be with our art, but be of service.
And when you get to be together physically with your dancers and directors and other members of your team, will you be creating the new ensemble in that space, the new Molly by the group in that space?
Here and also in Montreal, Louise Lapierre has been incredibly kind to me, letting me have space for free, which has been a great gift to my foundation, so that we've been using her wonderful studios during the winter to create in as well. So the church is just seasonal here. And everything is very raw, very rough, very underfunded, and very done with grit and love. So yeah, that's what we're doing. And I will continue to teach and choreograph and go around the world as well. And yep, and do what I
just put on my glasses then for a minute, Margie. We have some questions, and we can ask our artistic director, Kathleen Fee, who's going to pass them on to us. Kathleen, are you ready to give us one of the questions? There's one here I can see. There she is, Kathleen.
Hi.
Hi, Kathleen.
Yeah, hi, Margie. Wonderful talk. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Yes, there was a question that came in very early and quite apropos. Isadora Duncan maintained that words conflict with dance.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on that? I think you've kind of debunked that.
When I began dancing, people didn't dance in quotes to the spoken word. People didn't dance in quotes to silence. People didn't dance, but I didn't come from, I just love to dance. I was sort of a wild thing, not anyway, yeah, my mother's wild daughter, savage daughter. I was the savage daughter. And so, I'd hear that you couldn't do those things, and I would have to say, oh, well, I already did. And it worked out quite well, actually. So I don't really understand what you're talking about, because my experience is that silence, and poetry, I just, I mean, and the spoken word, I love words with songs. I love, right now, I'm sort of gaga over all this a cappella singing that's going on. And yeah, so yeah, I love the spoken word. I see no difference in the articulation of a spoken word than I do in the articulation of a gesture.
I noticed one of the questions. One of the questions is, Mr. Trudeau, can you minimize your screen?
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. I just find that rather funny because, of course, I can't minimize my screen. Thank goodness Edmund is there in the back stage to do those things. But there are a couple of other questions, Kathleen.
Yes. We were wondering, have you ever thought of doing something with the idea of Lucia Joyce, who was a professional dancer back in the day? And I'm wondering if she was involved with Isadora Duncan, because they were in Paris at the same time.
What an interesting thing that she was working with someone coming from her family heritage. I have not thought to. I have not thought to. I've often been asked to portray Isadora Duncan, but I must admit, I'm just sort of quite busy with me.
Yeah.
I mean, I have so many aspects of art and the healing that art can bring that interest me endlessly, that I kind of have a very strong center, and then I'm running down for just a million things. One of the things I do is problem solving using motion. I work with women or people who have had severe stresses in their life. I work with mediators for conflict transformation, the people who do the mediation, and I work in de-escalation. I work in the actual crisis moment, and I work with people who work in those things, and with rehabilitation. And I find a lot of parallels with health, and I find a lot of parallels with art. And I find that if you can get out of the talking head sometimes and just go into the physical body, just the texture and quality, you can actually come to a profound sense of knowingness and resolve in a better way, in a deeper, in a quicker way, without the storytelling. So anyway, I work in a lot of different mediums and a lot of different, I choreograph pieces, I have choreographic ideas, I write, I mentor, I teach. So many extraordinary people having such great vision. And I'm the kind of person that asks my dancers what they want, what their passion is, and then I help facilitate them to get what they want. I want them, that would be as a soloist, what's your vision? How can I help you with your vision, not my vision?
You're saying yes to them.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's it. It's the big yes. And I hear from my mom, who is not with us anymore, but I heard from my mom that my first word was yes. And she said it scared her a great deal. I was trouble from the word go, but yes was supposedly my first word, and I relish that, and I cherish my life, and I cherish being able to work in such a sort of a miraculous way. It just feels to me like there's miracle all around me, and I get to play with that and open that up and go into transformative space, moving things that are stuck into fluidity. And yeah, I'm very, very fond of that. So I'm kind of busy.
You said earlier that I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought, so I don't have a question anymore. But there is a comment in the questions in the Q&As, which I can draw up, which says that Isadora Duncan discovered the solar plexus at the center of dance. Is that so?
It's very possible. It's very possible. She did talk a great deal about the solar plexus. I would have a tendency to say that if you're moving heart-centric, you're not exactly balanced. I'd keep the center very Martha Graham, but at a picnic. So Martha, where your pelvic floor, your chi, your belly, your intestine, all of these areas, your lower chakra, are the center of your body, very sort of rather Michelangelo, or no, Da Vinci. And that is where we stem from. So the solar plexus is tremendously important, but I would like it to be transported by the hips, because if you move from the hips, your whole body goes. If you move from your head or your heart or your legs, you're off balance physically. So moving from the hips is more where I would center it, with an open flying heart.
You mentioned to us and you discussed with us earlier your work during the pandemic, remotely and on Zooming or what have you, with other dancers. And I noticed this, it seems to be a trend for people discussing what is it going to take to be able to get back to the physical world? And is there a sense that the dancers who haven't been dancing in public, for you, will need something, will be able to get back to that dance in the real?
I think there's such an eagerness to do that, that the few times we have been able to dance in public, it's been just incredibly thrilling. So as things open up, I really highly suggest to everybody go, because the artists are just in full passion. How much we're going to get to open up, what the world is going to look like, how, we are at a very big crux situation, not just with of the pandemic, but also with the planet and a number of issues. So it's hard to know what the openings are going to be and what the world is going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and how we're going to cope. I think obviously there's still going to be Zooming, there's going to be online, but and there will be some in person, but it's going to shift things. Also, how much funding will be there available for people. You can't get better at performing unless you get to perform. So there is that to be considered. So I'm actually right now going to be popping out of this and into work session with some dancers from around the world to discuss this very matter.
Well, you let us know when you have to leave, when you've had enough, because I know most people say I can only take so much screen time Zooming, so let us know. But Kathleen, I think you have a couple more questions that have come in.
Of course, I'm here.
Yes, well, a couple more. Somebody was wondering about what the inspiration was for the costumes in the piece, that they were so great.
A lot of those are actually my costumes or my clothing. I was pulling out and throwing out all my hippie dresses, and some of them are 40 dresses, 40s and 30s, and some of them are vintage pieces, and some of them were costumes that were remade after my original Molly got trashed. The lead Molly is wearing my costume from Waltzing Matilda. So it's just floral costumes. Everybody is in the florals because of the line, I love flowers. I'd love to have the whole place swimming in roses. That is just bliss to me, and I would. Yeah.
Yes, and the pink and blue and yellow houses.
Yeah.
There was, and our past president, David Sherman, says thanks for your marvelous energy, and we all hope to see you and your troupe in the flesh soon. Is there a planned venue and time when this will happen here in Montreal or Quebec? Of course, I think you've already answered that, Margie, that everything's still up in the air.
It is. I will be having my 50th anniversary as a professional dancer in my 70th year in 2023. So we are hoping for some activities during that time, and hoping that, Victoriaville has asked for Bloom and asked for another group work with Bloom, and that will be coming up. That would probably be, they want to do the premiere, beautiful theater. They would like to do the premiere, and that would be next year, and in a year and a couple of months.
At the Victoriaville Festival?
In their theater. It won't be part of a festival as such, just part of their season. Yes.
Oh, you're keeping your township, Quebec countryside roots going, taking that premiere there.
Well, we've got some beautiful, beautiful theaters around the province, and phenomenal audiences. I think that really the Quebec audience has helped make me as an artist, because you go, the audiences here go to a show and they embrace it, and then afterwards they argue about it. And so you get very strong and immediate reactions. People are very visceral. And I really do think that visceralness assisted me as an artist to create the communication level that I'm interested in on stage, off stage, and in my work with problem solving and conflict transformation.
You know, we talked about how Ulysses, when it was published, was met with some delight and much derision. And early, you know, your work, as you say, was very well received in Quebec, but some of the traditionalists turned up their noses, to say the least, at it. How did you deal with that and persevere?
I just heard my yes. I heard my yes louder than anything else. You know, that I think that sometimes when you open doors, you don't get to go through. I also think that if you are an artist of a long lineage, such as I'm going to be, or I seem to have already done, I don't show any signs of stopping, which is really wild. And very surprising for me, because I did consider it and thought, sure, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll quit. But I just can't. I just keep coming up with ideas. So yeah, I think you do go through times where you're in fashion and times where you're out of fashion. But if you see your work as something that is of value and of service, I've been remarkably blessed to be honored. I've got, you know, Officer of the Order of Canada, Governor General Award of the Performing Arts, a Chevalier from Quebec. I've got I've got a huge number of awards from here, there, and everywhere. So I have had recognition, and my work has been seen. And I also feel the effect of a parent when you watch somebody doing work that you know is derivative of what you've done, or you have somebody like Guy Laliberté say to a dancer, "We want a choreographer. We want it to look like Margie Gillis." Why don't you hire her? You know, she's still around. So there's yeah, you get to see that. You get to see, and I think that each generation, I think all of us at some point realize, maybe in our 30s or our 40s, that each generation dreams up the next one. What we've left undone, what we can't accomplish, falls to those. And when we see young people opening those doors and pushing through, it's just as thrilling as I've never really minded whether it was me or somebody else. I just want to see, I just want to see that level of excellence and that level of passion, and I want to see genius. I want to experience it. I want to know it in my lifetime, whether it's me or somebody else.
Well, someone else's genius is always more easy to detect, and then working for your own genius sometimes can be a little hard, can't it?
It's a passion. It's just a passion. I don't try to qualify it too much. It's just the passion. And certainly, you know, James Joyce was not considered in his time. I have a friend who says, I always go see everything I really love twice and everything I hate twice. Anything that is just medium, I don't go see again. But anything I really detest or really love, I always go see.
So how many times have you read Ulysses?
I have, you know, I've never read the whole thing through. I've read it in parcels. So there's sections I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, and I'll pick it up and just go for a section, and I'll do audio books. But because how it's spoken, the quality of the voice, that's the music that I'm going to use. How are those consonants and vowels shaped and gifted out into space?
Margie Gillis, we've had you here, the pleasure of listening to you and seeing you and hearing about the story of Bloom as a solo and as an ensemble. And I know you're moving on soon to another appointment on Zoom, so I don't want to keep you very much longer. I want to thank you very much for
Thank you.
being with us, for being so open and looking so fabulous. Thank you to Kathleen Fee for passing those questions on to us. And I'm going to ask you to say thank you and goodbye, but I'm going to ask you also, as you do that, to present, because we're going to watch that video again to see how we see it now. And I just ask you to make your introduction to the video as you say goodbye to us. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. In this piece, what you're seeing is everyone running around through their brains, just wild. The women are laughing, the women, and there's one man, we have one man in the cast that you see. They're all running around just in the dark, just trying to find, and thrilled by it. So nervous laughter, scared by it. And then they arrive. Wait, there's George's church bells, and it just follows suit from there. And so there's a lead Molly, and then just a tribe of Mollys going after her. Each one unique. Each one is like looking at a bouquet of flowers. Each flower is different, but it is a bouquet. It is Molly. So I hope you see it and enjoy it, and I hope you will support us in getting the full-length Molly on. And this is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful festival. I'm so, so grateful to be part of it. And I wish you all deep joy in your exploration of this wonderful man's work.
Wait. There's George's church bells. Wait. 3/4 the hour. Wait. 2 o'clock. Well, that's a nice hour of the night for him to be coming home at to anybody. Climbing down into the area. If anybody saw him, I'll knock him off that little habit tomorrow. First, I'll look at his shirt to see, or I'll see if he has that French letter still in his pocketbook. I suppose he thinks I don't know deceitful men. All their 20 pockets aren't enough for their lies. Then why should we tell them? Even if it's the truth, they don't believe you. Then tucked up in bed like those babies in the aristocrat's masterpiece he brought me another time, as if we hadn't enough of that in real life without some old aristocrat or whatever his name is disgusting him over with those rotten pictures. Children with 2 heads and no legs. That's the kind of villainy they're always dreaming about, with not another thing in their empty heads. They ought to get slow poison, the half of them. Then tea and toast for him, buttered on both sides, and new-laid eggs. I suppose I'm nothing anymore when I wouldn't let him lick me in Hollis Street one night. Man, tyrant as ever.
All right, Margie Gillis, thank you again. It's beautiful. I love it. That's what I said the first time I watched it, and that's what I say every time I see it now. It's beautiful. I love it. Thank you, Margie Gillis. Goodbye. Oh, good next session, too. A work in progress of Joyce's Ulysses in movement and dance, choreographed by the one and only Margie Gillis, who's been so generous with us this afternoon. Thank you again, Margie. We've opened the festival Bloomsday, Montreal, the 10th of them. We've opened it with Molly's words. And of course, we will hear them again on Wednesday afternoon when we conclude this 10th anniversary festival, Bloomsday, Montreal. From now to then, we have a slew of events online, and actually one in person. Yes, the in-person one is the historic walk through Old Montreal with Donovan King. You can also register for the virtual one. I especially invite you, though, to join me tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock for a rollicking variety concert invoking the spirit of Bloom in words and music and song, and maybe a little movement too, if we can. We'll hear some klezmer, some Spanish folk tunes, some old familiar Victorian parlor songs, and meet Governor General Award-winning writer Peter Behrens. Don't miss it. And for that concert tomorrow and for all the events, check the bloomsdaymontreal.com website for all the info and to register for all the events as a Zoom attendee. I remind you, though, you can, if you don't get a chance to register, spaces are limited, you can follow the streaming on YouTube. You can, all this available by going to bloomsdaymontreal.com and finding out. Thank you again to Margie Gillis, the one and only in the Townships. Thanks to all of you for joining us. And of course, thank you to Kathleen Fee, our Artistic Director, and Edmund Nash, our Technical Director, for making it all possible. And of course, as always, thank you to James Joyce. Bye for now.